Transferable skills.
From Cackle Media, this is Transferable Skills. I'm Noah Mishkin. Today's guest is Adam Fontana, who shares his skills journey from change management into growth strategy. I hope you enjoy. Adam Fontana, it's great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, super excited.
Where do you want to start?
Where do you want to start?
I want to start where it's most meaningful for you. You tell me. This is your show.
I love it. It's my show. Welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I appreciate it. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
I think what's interesting when I look back at my career is there was no one set path. It was just me bouncing around from yes to yes on the back of knowing that I needed to do something and had no idea what I wanted to do. I come from South Louisiana, probably lower middle class, probably upper lower to be nice. Blue collar dad, always working, very good, hard work ethic. My mom's public school teacher, and summers, weekends, events, you were always doing something.
Yeah.
And so it was go get a lawnmower and cut grass. And so I think back to my first job of, I guess I have to, if I want shoes and I want these things that I want as a kid, I'm going to go get a job.
Good role models for work ethic and responsibility.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of science that is now backing the notion of chores build character and teach children to be resilient, and part of the equation that leads towards potential success.
Absolutely. It's the input output, and learning that consequence or reward is on what you put into it. There's this tangential thing that you just work. I have to work. And I think that's always been the driving force behind why I just said yes to every opportunity that came up. Even if I was unqualified, whether it was I was truly unqualified and I still said yes, or whether I just felt unqualified in the moment, I always just said yes. And throughout my career, that was actually the biggest lesson that I learned, was that it's okay to be uncomfortable. You can get comfortable being uncomfortable, but opening yourself up to different opportunities, candidly, is why I get to do what I do today and why I feel like I finally hit the stride in what I love doing and being well-rounded.
The two subjects that are probably equally racing for being the authority on the subject is how to say no more and yes is the way. It's say yes to everything, but also how to say no to more things. They're ultimately about the same thing, which is how to say yes to the right things and no to the things you don't want to do.
Completely. That does come with its own challenge at a certain point. When you say, I've said yes to so many different things, I see everybody else around me having the traditional college experience and going to college and dedicating their lives to a very specific discipline. And here I am bouncing from coffee operations to finance and accounting to marketing to change management to international travel to coming back up and diving into digital marketing. And I always felt like I was behind the curve because I said yes to everything, and it felt like everybody else knew what they wanted to do. And then newsflash, no one knows what they want to do, even if they dedicated themselves. And the only reason why I've been able to excel in the ways that I have is simply because I have the breadth of experience from the yeses, and at a certain point decided, I think I found what I want to do. I think I have a niche. I think I'm good at X, Y, and Z, and started developing what the no's were. Because I think most people that are naturally intellectual or have a hard work ethic, you can figure your way into a lot of things. And when you're good at a lot, it generally you have to figure out, okay, but do I like it? Like I was a good accountant, but did I want to go get my CPA license and become a tax accountant? No, I didn't. But it was a valuable lesson set to learn how to understand how does money move through a business and how do people get paid? How do contracts get signed? How do you create purchasing agreements? And what do businesses care about at the end of the day?
I think what you said just now is, I would at least qualify it as very insightful, dare I say brilliant, from the standpoint of self-awareness, because you were speaking about this perceived value need for people to find a specialty versus bouncing around. you started describing yourself as lacking perhaps confidence because you didn't know what you wanted to do, and you're never going to be perfect at any one thing because you're bouncing around. And yet you drew that conclusion of, I am so good at solving problems and being good at all these different jobs because of the breadth of experience that I've had.
Absolutely. I think the second piece of that is I was always the kid that had to take something apart to understand how it was built and then put it back together. And I'm just naturally built in a way that needs to dismantle. If I'm going to learn a new system, I need to understand every individual input. How does it report back? The reconciliation of what I'm viewing versus what went into creating it, whether it was a product or a deliverable. And it's why I think it's probably taken me longer. I think people with natural intelligence, they can just get from A to B or A to Z. And I'm over here, yes, I get A to Z, but I need to understand how did B and C and D develop and E, F, and G. But I'll tell you, once I got to the point where I could understand what it was and whether it was a supply chain or how dollars ended up being inked in a deal, no one could beat me. I got to this point where at every individual touch point, and it wasn't a competition, it was just simply I had more depth and breadth of knowledge. And it was through that almost manic curiosity that drove me to reverse engineering everything that I've touched. And sometimes it's been a challenge to navigate. Sometimes you can't afford to spend that much time. In my day-to-day today, I don't do that as much. But it's paying dividends that I went through a period of time that I could afford to do it, and I did it. And it's given me the leg up on being able to understand the micro components that go into it and can support teams better. I can support strategy better. I can support outcomes in a much more efficient way.
You beat me to the question of asking if it's ever served as a disadvantage to you, needing to break everything down and rebuild it. Your knowledge and assumptions are compounding over the years of experience. And in your youth, were you like that too? Did you feel the need to break things down conceptually, but also literally?
I did. With my dad being blue collar, very hands-on, always tinkering around vehicles and cars and building stuff with his hands, it always was accessible to figure out. I got to see the build process. I got to see the teardown process. From that exposure to it alone, yes. And that is what I think I missed as I started taking on jobs and growing. It was just the expectation of go do this.
Yeah.
Previously, as I was growing, I got to see how it was done. And so candidly, I always thought that was a weakness. I always thought everybody else just gets it. And it's taking me longer to just get it.
You said before, like one of the things that you said that I did not correct at the time, and I'm going to do now, is there's some people that have intelligence naturally. We all have intelligence naturally. So I think sometimes intelligence is conflated and there's a confusion between capacity versus curiosity and learned knowledge. It doesn't really matter what someone's intellectual capacity is. The question is, are you utilizing your full capacity or opportunities to explore things? And I think that we all, though, have the ability to push past our comfort zone and say, I can do this, even if it's not easy. But then it also begs the question, what is worth the effort? Is it worth pursuing something that's really hard that you could do versus finding things that you could equally be successful in, if not more successful, that feel more natural and leveraging your natural skills?
No, I love that. It's the concept of brute force. I hate public speaking. The only way to get better is to say yes to opportunities to speak publicly. Same thing is true for our professional selves, our live skill sets that we're trying to develop. Generally, it's the things that you feel like I'm not be qualified or that scares me. Saying yes to that is what gets you to build the muscle and to build that callus to say, yeah, I can do that. It goes back to that old quote of calm seas never made a skilled sailor, right?
Yeah, they're never challenging you. And you're never going to learn the skills that are needed in those conditions unless you're faced with them.
Absolutely. One of the jobs that I got, I had successfully found myself in accounting and then finance and had done marketing. And one day I got a phone call from the CFO and he said, hey, we have a business that has about 6-month run rate. You can't hurt it. Do you want to try? And I was like, try what? He's like, get it back up. I was like, I've never done this. And he said, the goal here is really, can you flip the business in 6 months? And I said, okay, well, what's the task? Like, give me the guideline. He laughed, first off. And then he's like, revenues need to exceed expenses. That's it. And then he walked out.
Wow.
I remember feeling so alone in that moment of that's so heavy. I have no idea what to do with this, but I'll figure it out. And then talk about brute force reverse engineering how an entire business is operated. That was one of my first forays into change management. Made a ton of mistakes, learned a ton of things, and it ended up being, to this day, one of my favorite projects that I took on. That single experience transformed how I viewed what I do.
Best case scenario, you're the hero.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, it's the same as it was when you got in and you didn't do anything and you didn't make it any worse.
Yeah.
What a great learning opportunity.
It was an amazing learning opportunity. It was incredible. And I had fear simply because the unknown.
Yeah.
We have fear of the unknown, and I still take brutal accountability for anything that I have my hand in. So I looked at it as, wow, this is incredible. It's daunting. There are people involved in this. What are they going to feel like when I come in on the first day and they get told, hey, this is your new leader. He's running the ship. What does that mean for the current leader? What does that mean for the interpersonal workings? I didn't even know what the benchmark was financially. I remember coming into the first staff meeting and everybody looking wide-eyed and what's about to happen and oh no. And it's like, it's going to be okay. We're going to figure this out together. And
I got good news and bad news. This is Adam.
Yeah.
What was your strategy going into this? I know you're roughly 25 years old, but
yeah.
How do you build that trust from that first day?
Yeah. First and foremost, there's no blame here. Like, we're walking in, here's the objective truth. We have 6 months. And for whatever reason, everything that we're doing right now has led us to this point. So I'm coming in to support figuring out with you guys, with the team, how do we flip this? And step one was, let's look at the money. How does money come in? Where is it going? Revenues, expenses. And then I realized that wasn't truly the problem. The problem was the customer experience. It was the product. It was how customers felt when they came in, how customers felt when they left, how easy was it? Was the product quality good? Did it match the value and the price point that we had in market? And I really took a step back, and it's probably the biggest lesson I learned in my entire career was we can get focused on the money trail, and I get CFOs will love me for that one. But at the end of the day, if the customer experience is bad, they'll never come back. You'll never be able to generate a sustainable acquisition pipeline. Your word of mouth, your loyalty, your LTV, it's all going to tank. And so I didn't know all of those concepts at the time that I decided to say, hey, you know what? Let me stop reconciling dollars and cents day in and day out. Let me go first to what is the customer experience when they come in, when they order. And once we started really dissecting that, and welcome to the brute force reverse engineering of how things happen, that was the biggest applied kind of skill set that I took. And I really walked through it through the lens of our customer. We started increasing the quality of our product. We started decreasing wait times. We started increasing loyalty and rewards. And we ended up having more money than we could reconcile. And I was like, okay, now I'll focus on the money part.
So you drew the conclusion that the biggest problem was customer satisfaction and everything brand association and experience. At that point, change needs to happen. How do you figure out how to prioritize and what to work on from a priority standpoint? There's a lot that could be changed. So where do you go first? How do you know what to focus on?
Absolutely. We started talking to our customers.
See, don't overthink
Go figure. Go figure. And that's the beauty of it, right? At that time in my career, I didn't have all the modeled approaches and all of this. It was literally brute force. I guess we could just ask the customers that keep coming in what they like and what they don't like. And we did. And lo and behold, they were honest.
Can I dive deeper for more specificity on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of times the typical retail experience is at checkout, you're about to pay and someone says, did you find everything you were looking for? Was there anything else I could help you with? How did everything go today? It's pretty superficial.
It is.
And I imagine it's a very small rate of an answer that's anything other than everything was fine. Yes, thank you. How did you approach customers and get real feedback from them?
Absolutely. So the first phase of it was clunky. It was at the register, at the point of checkout. I had made it a point to start my day and take on the busy sections of our schedule at the register. It was where no one wanted to be because you're facing the customers that are upset. And I thought that was amazing exposure to everything that we needed. So when we had the time, it was one-to-one, just me asking questions about product, quality, service. I wanted to, be exposed to the point of tension that our customers were facing by being the one they were transacting with. And then 2, taking that kind of just experiential understanding of our customer dissatisfaction and trying to figure out, how do I bucket this? Was it product? Was it service? Where do we go here? Then slowly but surely, I started making physical changes to the space. I wanted our customers to at least see something's different. So it was, how do we start taking old paintings down and old design and artwork down? And even just taking things down was a physical representation that something was happening.
Yeah.
It connected the dots with our customers. Oh, they're not just asking me my opinion. I'm not just hearing these things, I'm seeing it. And then merge that with, all of a sudden, we started getting better quality products. And we started doing consistency training to create less of an outlier for dependency of who was producing the product. Consistency and quality started going up. Physical changes were taking place. We ended up doing construction. We never had the cash flow to do construction prior to that. All of a sudden, we started having the cash flow. And you start snowballing the customer experience into something that customers were so okay with, this baseline of convenience, and I guess it's just cheap and easy. And now it's a destination we want to get to. And now we can focus on acquisition and lifetime value while working on business operations in the background.
Yeah. Change management is a really interesting skill set.
And then you find yourself in positions of people reaching out in your career and saying, hey, I don't have this thing defined yet. We know there's a problem. Maybe it's partially defined. Are you okay with gray area? Absolutely. I live in gray area. But what I'll do is maybe we'll detect some guidelines. Maybe we'll get in and be able to assess. Here's something we need to solve for, but here are the 50 other things that are rolling into that. And here's a plan for how we operationalize it. When I look at what I get to do, how I got here, and even in the trajectory of my future self, I'm so comfortable with gray area because I can reverse engineer anything that comes to my plate. I can work with nearly anyone to accomplish those goals. I see value in every discipline that ends up being around me, but I'm never the smartest person in the room.
If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Where do you have to go? You're
Totally.
not learning.
Totally. And that sounds cliche until you're living it and you experience it and go, this is what they're talking about. And I've never found myself in a room where I was the dedicated subject matter expert. I was the guy who had experience in change management and a breadth of other skill sets that could come in, assess, and then understand how to activate those with deep subject matter expertise to solve the problem. And I always looked at that I was the one that was the outlier, that everyone else knew the discipline, knew the subject matter that they were going to attack. And then I realized that was a skill set in and of itself. And I always discredited that until I got older in my career. And I was like, wow, it's all these other people that are so smart that are going and doing this. And then one day it was, then why am I always the one that's getting asked, can you come in and assess and then see how we activate these really smart people into it?
Right.
And I was like, oh, that is a skill set.
I think that one of the missions of this podcast is truly to shed more light on the skills versus the subject. So you're a skill master, especially when it comes to change management. And that is vital for organizations because they're often in a room full of people that are subject matter experts. What they need is identifying the problem and making changes happen. If you think about the TED series, I don't know what the breakdown is between subject matter experts and skill experts. I'm going to go ahead on the record and say 50-50 importance.
Probably, yeah. And nobody talks about that.
Not often enough. We don't talk about it enough. That's the truth.
No.
And that's what we're doing right now. Do you ever find it working against you where you might be in a position you were hired for and change is not your responsibility and you're picking things apart and finding flaws and thinking about how to improve them or change them, but that's not your job and you need to stop making these changes or talking about them. Just do your job.
Yeah. No, ask my wife how many problems I attempt to solve on a daily basis instead of just shutting up. And
Right.
I think y'all would have a longer podcast than we're able to talk through. No, absolutely. I think my first true jump into digital marketing, I went into a larger digital marketing agency that was more enterprise setup. I had left a leadership role. We had just moved from New Orleans to the Chicago area. They were going to teach me the new iteration and kind of foray into digital marketing at that time. And so I took it as a learning opportunity, but I was coming in a little bit more seasoned and senior than those on the team from a management and leadership standpoint. But it was fine. I was coming in to learn a skill. I didn't know that meant that I would just be wide-eyed to every operational inefficiency. Everything that I had done in my career to that point was, how do I create efficiency? Efficiency equals dollars. How do I create that at scale? Customer experience. I'm breaking all of that down. And yet I had accepted a position to just become a member of a team that was producing a deliverable that was being sold. And that was very difficult for me.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. The lesson in that was I was able to put that away and learn what I needed to learn from a skill set standpoint to again jump, transfer that knowledge, and then combine both backgrounds into my next role. But it was a significant challenge.
What I'm wondering is if that made the job less satisfying.
1,000%. It's tough. That was the toughest part about that role. The role was outlined perfectly and the organization was really good. There, nothing, no notes, as I think the kids would say, on that. It was simply my background coming into an experience where the role was input, output defined. And yeah, it obviously seems like you have a breadth of experience, but this is what we're doing here. Insert next role was, hey, you have a really vast skill set in this digital marketing discipline across a lot of different channels. You come from change management, you come from brand strategy and brand building. We need all of that in one area and we've never done it before. Can you help us? I was like, actually, yes, I can. So again, at every point that I thought, oh no, what did I do? As long as I approached it with, can I get something out of this? Can I learn something I didn't know before? Whether it's through an individual, a team, the job that I was doing, it all leveled into the next opportunity that I got to say yes to that was unexpected. And also just, yeah, I'm sure I can figure it out. Let's go. Something you said literally just triggered like the light bulb moment. You mentioned change management as a skill set. I had never considered that being a skill set. I just thought it was the thing you did. You know,
Until
you
when?
got.
When did you realize?
Recently, maybe in the last 2 or 3 years, did I realize it was a skill set. And I don't think I realized it was a skill set because everything that I've ever done has been jump in, figure it out, change it for the better. Every position I've ever had, I was successful because of change management. I didn't realize that was a literal skill set. I didn't realize looking at everything through a change management lens was a skill set in and of itself. Because having that foundation, everything else became so natural. Looking at an inefficient system was like, what's the time and what's the dollar cost to changing it to make it better for the teams and our customers?
Yeah.
What I started finding out is the superpower in a career is just having vision, being willing to do it, lay out the plan, and work with people to get it done, versus being the person that just sits and waits for somebody else to tell them what to do. And I feel like my curiosity, my slight ADHD, and my ability to just take on anything, maybe naively, but it generally always leads to the, I didn't realize it could be as good as it is.
Yeah.
So anyway, to your point about change management as a skill set, I think that's the nugget.
I think that's your brand. It seems to be a very important part of who you are and how you approach all things.
Yeah. Personally and professionally.
Yeah. When you realize this skill set, the importance of it as a unique value that you have mastered, did it inform or change anything after that moment of realization?
Confidence, candidly. We bridge the professional into personal. You know, I've always said that self-awareness is a superpower. It's I wouldn't say underrated, but I don't think it's on the radar as a superpower.
Yeah.
The light bulb went off in my head that it reconciled to, how do I try to achieve personal growth? Oh, it aligns to the professional growth because it's a skill set in and of itself. Maybe that is my skill set, and I just took me a long time to figure out what it was that I was good at. I understood through the visual learning element and the hands-on just recreation of it, going back to the reverse engineering, through micro moments in my education as a kid. When you come from that and you just understand work is blue collar and work is pick up the shovel and go dig the hole and go get the lawnmower and cut grass, there's never this thought of what do I want to be when I grow up, because this was it. That was it. That was my reality. I never saw past that. I didn't think I had grades to getting to college. I was never a great student. But what I really liked was experiential things. That's what drew me to music. That's why I spent a lot of time creating and writing and touring and traveling. And, you know, with the work ethic on the other side, you have to work. So picking up every part-time job and odd job, and from construction to coffee, and then move into, you get a life event like Hurricane Katrina that grounds everybody personally and professionally in a community. But meet that with a job market that had more demand than supply. And this idea that maybe I could give back, maybe I could help my community and start nonprofit operations and helping an organization. And welcome to circling back to how my kind of path and career journey kicked off. But again, I was ignorant to the idea that I had any sort of future in professional work. So there was no thought or path. It was just, okay, I'll say yes. I shouldn't be here anyway, but I'm going to say yes.
Yeah. The joke is that now the skilled labor market is far more lucrative and only growing.
Huge.
At a disproportionate pace. The universe course correcting from our assumptions and maybe the way that we were pushing our civilization to evolve. I might posit this theory that if you have an intelligence level where you believe, understand everything right away, you may be at a disadvantage to the person who feels or needs to have it explained or ask questions in order to get it. Is that if you don't ask questions, what are you missing out on because of your assumptions? Or if you ask a lot of questions, what more are you learning, and how much more do you potentially have an opportunity to gain a full picture about an idea, as opposed to maybe making a bunch of assumptions or drawing a conclusion because that's just how you always operate. I'm not saying one is better than the other. Yeah. I just don't think that one is always a strength over the other. I think that intelligence only sometimes plays a role in someone's success. Ultimately, it's about work ethic, drive, the interest and ability to learn and wanting to succeed. Those things are equally attributed to success as subject matter expertise, years of experience, IQ, I can make an argument both sides. I'm not a scientist and I'm not a psychologist, but I do have a lot of opinions.
It is all perspective.
Yeah.
It is all perspective.
Adam Fontana, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you again for your time, your wisdom, your expertise, change management, all that stuff. Thank you.
Love it. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
I want to thank Jacqueline Crawford for recommending Adam as today's guest, and to you, our listeners, for joining us on this episode of Transferable Skills. Thank you for listening, and remember, the skills you've gained can take you anywhere. Until next time, keep exploring those transferable skills.